What if Spain became a republic tomorrow? Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and seeing a headline that changes Spain forever. Spain is now a republic. No King Felipe VI. No Queen Letizia. No Princess Leonor waiting to inherit the crown. Instead, Spain would have a president chosen through a republican system. But how could something this enormous actually happen? And what would happen to the Spanish royal family, the constitution, the government, and especially Princess Leonor? Today we're going inside one of the most fascinating political what-if scenarios imaginable. Because if Spain became a republic tomorrow, it wouldn't simply mean removing a crown. It could reshape the country's political system, national identity, and future in ways many people might not expect. First, let's make something clear. Spain becoming a republic tomorrow is a hypothetical scenario, not a prediction. Spain is currently a parliamentary monarchy under its 1978 constitution. The king is the head of state, while elected institutions exercise political power. So changing Spain into a republic would require major constitutional and political changes. And that's where things become extremely interesting. Because the biggest question isn't simply, would Spain still have a king? The bigger question is, what would Spain become without the crown? Let's imagine that scenario step by step. The crown disappears. If Spain suddenly became a republic, the most visible change would be the disappearance of the monarchy as the country's institution of headship. King Felipe VI would no longer be king. Queen Letizia would no longer hold her royal position. And Princess Leonor would no longer be the future queen of Spain. That would be a historic turning point. For Leonor personally, the change could be extraordinary. Her entire education and public preparation have been shaped around one central possibility: becoming Spain's future head of state. Military training, constitutional education, public appearances, diplomatic preparation, and royal duties all form part of that preparation. In a republic, however, the constitutional role of monarch would disappear. Leonor could potentially continue her life as a private citizen, depending on the laws adopted during the transition. And suddenly, the young woman who had spent years preparing for a crown would no longer have a crown waiting for her. Who would become president? Now comes one of the biggest questions. If there were no king, who would become Spain's head of state? The answer would depend entirely on the republican system Spain created. Spain could potentially establish a president with mostly ceremonial responsibilities, or it could create a stronger presidency with significant political authority. Those are two very different possibilities. In a parliamentary republic, the president might represent the nation while an elected prime minister leads the government. In a presidential system, the president could have much greater executive power. And that means the debate wouldn't simply be monarchy versus republic. It would also be, what kind of republic? That decision could shape Spain for generations. What happens to the Spanish royal family? This is where emotions could run especially high. The Spanish royal family has a long historical connection to the country. But if the monarchy were abolished constitutionally, the family would no longer have official royal duties. Would they lose everything? Not necessarily. They could potentially continue living in Spain, depending on the laws established during the transition. Their residences, financial arrangements, security, titles, and public roles could all become subjects of political debate. Some people might argue that former royals should receive protections and financial arrangements because of their previous constitutional responsibilities. Others might argue that a republic should completely separate public institutions from the former royal household. That debate could become one of the most controversial parts of the transition. And Princess Leonor would find herself at the center of it. What about Spain's national identity? Here's something many people might overlook. A monarchy isn't only a political institution. For supporters, it can also represent history, tradition, continuity, and national symbolism. So removing the monarchy wouldn't automatically erase Spain's history. The country's traditions, culture, language, architecture, celebrations, and historical identity would remain. But some symbols could change. Official ceremonies could look different. The head of state's role would change. Royal events would disappear or be transformed. And the way Spain presents itself internationally could evolve. For some Spaniards, that might feel like modernization. For others, it could feel like the loss of an important connection to history. And that is why the debate would probably become deeply emotional. Would Spain become more democratic? This is one of the most important questions. Some supporters of republicanism argue that a head of state should be chosen through democratic means rather than inherited. Their argument is simple. If citizens choose their leaders, why should one position be inherited by birth? Monarchists, however, can make a different argument. They can say that a constitutional monarch can remain politically neutral, while elected politicians compete for power. The king does not run political parties or campaign for votes. Instead, the monarchy can provide continuity above everyday political competition. So would a republic automatically make Spain more democratic? Not necessarily. Democracy depends on institutions, elections, laws, courts, rights, accountability, and the participation of citizens. Changing the head of state alone would not solve every political problem. The economic question. Then comes another question that would dominate public discussion. Would Spain save money by becoming a republic? This sounds straightforward, but the answer is complicated. The monarchy has official public costs, but a republic would also need a head of state institution. A president would require staff, security, travel, official residences, ceremonies, and administrative support. So eliminating the monarchy would not automatically mean eliminating every expense connected with the head of state. The real economic impact would depend on how Spain designed its new republican system. And this is exactly why simple claims like a republic would save millions, or a monarchy costs nothing, should be treated carefully. The reality would depend on the details. What would happen to Princess Leonor? Now let's return to the person who could experience the most dramatic personal change. Princess Leonor. Imagine spending your entire childhood being prepared for a responsibility that has existed for generations. You study the Constitution. You learn about Spain's institutions. You receive military training. You represent the country at important ceremonies. You prepare for diplomacy. You learn that one day you may become queen. And then suddenly the constitutional system changes. The future queen becomes a former princess. That would be an extraordinary moment, not only politically but personally. Would Leonor continue public service? Would she pursue another career? Would she remain involved in charitable work? Would she live quietly away from public life? Nobody could know for certain. But one thing would be undeniable. Her life would change forever. Would Spain be more united or more divided? Perhaps the biggest question of all would be unity. Spain is a country with strong regional identities and different political perspectives. For some citizens, the monarchy represents national unity. For others, the monarchy represents an outdated institution. If Spain suddenly became a republic, those existing disagreements wouldn't magically disappear. They could become even more intense. The transition itself could produce passionate debates about national identity, constitutional reform, regional autonomy, political power, and the future of Spain. A successful republic would therefore need more than a new president. It would need strong institutions and broad public legitimacy. So, what if Spain became a republic tomorrow? The crown would disappear. King Felipe VI would no longer be king. Princess Leonor would no longer be Spain's future queen. A new system of government would have to be established. But the most important lesson is this. Changing a country's head of state doesn't automatically change the country's identity. Spain would still be Spain. Its people, culture, history, cities, traditions, and hopes for the future would remain. The real question would be what kind of future Spaniards choose for themselves. And perhaps that's what makes this hypothetical scenario so fascinating. Because the future of a nation isn't ultimately about a crown. It's about the people who live beneath it. What do you think? If Spain became a republic tomorrow, would it be a positive change? Or would Spain lose an important part of its identity? Tell me your opinion in the comments. And if you enjoy fascinating stories about Spain, Princess Leonor, the royal family, and the future of the crown, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because the next chapter of Spain's story could be even more fascinating.